I've always thought of the desert as a blank slate, an expanse of nothing stretching out to meet the sky, indifferent to the lives scraping by beneath it. Today it feels more like a furnace, the sun a relentless hammer pounding down on my silver sedan as I coax it along the cracked highway. 3 days in Phoenix, pitching campaigns to suits who barely looked up from their phones, have left me hollowed out, a shell of the 32-year-old marketing consultant I'm supposed to be. My navy blazer lies crumpled on the passenger seat, a casualty of the heat, and my blouse clings to my skin, damp with sweat I can't outrun. Home is 6 hours east, a mirage of cool water and silence, but the desert doesn't care about my plans. The first sign of trouble is a cough, a ragged, mechanical sputter that jerks me out of my haze. My hands tighten on the wheel, slick with perspiration, the leather warm and unforgiving. Then the car lurches, a violent shudder that sends my heart racing, my hazel eyes snapping to the dashboard. Red lights flare like warning flares, the temperature gauge climbing into dangerous territory. I curse, the sound sharp in the confined space, swallowed by the drone of tires on asphalt. Panic claws at my chest, but I shove it down. Years of managing deadlines have taught me to keep my head when everything else falls apart. Ahead, through the shimmering heat, a shape emerges. A gas station, its faded sign swaying like a ghost in the wind, a speck of salvation in this sunburned void. I nurse the car into the lot, the gravel crunching beneath the tires, a gritty hymn that slows as the engine gives its final groan. Silence crashes in, heavy and absolute, broken only by the faint creak of metal expanding under the sun's glare. I push the door open, stepping out into a blast of heat that steals my breath. Dry, sharp, tasting of dust and forgotten promises. My low heels sink into the earth, kicking up puffs of sand that cling to my calves, and I feel the weight of my body, the ache in my legs from hours of driving. My auburn hair, once pinned into a sleek bun, has rebelled, strands sticking to my neck where sweat gathers in delicate beads. I smooth my blouse, the fabric tacky against my curves, and take in the scene. A squat building with peeling paint, a grimy window staring blankly at the desert, and beyond it, the faint outline of a garage lurking under a sagging awning. The air presses against me as I cross the lot, each step a small battle against the heat. Inside, the station is a time capsule, stale, thick with the scent of gasoline and weathered wood. A bell jangles above the door, its note dying in the hum of a fan that struggles to stir the air. An old man sits behind the counter, his face a tapestry of lines etched by years I can't imagine, his hands gnarled like the scrub outside. He doesn't look up from his tattered magazine, and I feel a flicker of irritation, another person ignoring me, just like the Phoenix execs. I spot a cooler in the corner and grab a bottle of water, the plastic icy against my fingers, a lifeline in this sweltering tomb. The cap cracks open with a satisfying snap and I drink, the cold sliding down my throat, soothing the parched ache that settled there. It's a small victory, a moment of control in a day slipping out of my grasp. My car's dying out there, I say, my voice clipped, the professional edge I've honed over years cutting through the quiet. Any chance someone can take a look? I'm not pleading, not yet, but there's a thread of urgency I can't hide. The old man's eyes flick up, sharp beneath bushy brows, and I feel seen for the first time today. Garage out back, he drawls, his voice rough as the desert wind. Scott runs it, my grandson. Good with engines, best there is, even at 20. There's a warmth in his tone, a pride that softens the gruffness, and I nod, fishing a crumpled bill from my purse. I hand it over, our fingers brushing briefly, his skin dry and cool against mine. It's a fleeting connection, but it steadies me as I step back into the heat, the bottle pressed to my palm like a talisman. The sun hits me again, a physical force that makes my head swim, and I round the building, my steps kicking up dust that settles on my skin. The garage looms ahead, its wide mouth open to the desert, a shadowed refuge of steel and shadow. Tools gleam faintly in the dimness, strewn across a workbench streaked with grease, and the air shifts, cooler, heavier, laced with the metallic tang of oil and the earthy musk of sun-baked sand. I pause at the threshold, my breath catching as a figure steps out from behind a battered truck. Scott. He's tall, taller than I expected. His frame broad and solid, a man sculpted from the desert itself. Sweat glistens on his skin, tracing the lines of his shoulders, his chest stretching a faded t-shirt that clings to every ridge of muscle. His hair is dark, tousled, falling across a forehead bronzed by the sun, and his hands, strong, capable, wipe a rag across his knuckles, leaving a smear of black. I freeze, my body registering him before my mind can catch up. He's young, barely 20, the old man said, but there's nothing soft or unformed about him. His stance is rooted, hips cocked in a casual confidence that sends a jolt through me, a spark igniting in the hollow of my chest. The heat of the day coils tighter, pressing against my ribs, my skin prickling with a sudden, sharp awareness. I've been numb for days, weeks maybe, lost in the grind of boardrooms and hotel rooms, a life of schedules and solitude. But now, here, in this nowhere place, my senses flare awake, raw and insistent. I feel the sweat pooling at the small of my back, the way my blouse tugs against my breasts, the faint ache in my thighs from sitting too long. And I feel him, Scott, his presence a magnetic pull I can't ignore. He looks up, catching my stare, his eyes a deep green that slice through the haze, sharp and unyielding. For a moment we hold each other, the space between us humming with a current I can't name. My lips part, a breath escaping, and the water bottle slips in my grasp. I tighten my fingers just in time, the cold grounding me as my pulse races. Car trouble? His voice is low, resonant, a sound that settles into my bones, stirring the quiet. I nod, swallowing the dryness in my throat, my tongue brushing my lips instinctively. It's out front, I manage, my words feeling distant, my focus narrowing to the way his t-shirt clings to his torso, the faint sheen of sweat tracing a path down his neck. Barely made it here. He steps closer, gesturing for me to lead the way, and I turn, acutely aware of him behind me, his footsteps steady, the heat of his body brushing my back like a whisper. We reach the car, its hood radiating warmth like a wounded animal, and I stand aside as he pops it open. Steam hisses into the air, a sharp scent of burnt rubber cutting through the stillness, and I watch him work, his hands deft, his movements sure. We'll tow it in, he says, already moving to hook a chain from a nearby rig. I cross my arms, the bottle cold against my elbow, my thoughts a tangle of relief and something sharper, curiosity maybe, or the first stirrings of want. The desert stretches endless around us, a vast, silent witness, and yet this moment feels intimate, contained, as if the world has shrunk to the two of us and the broken machine between. The tow is quick, the car groaning as it rolls into the garage's shade. I follow, stepping back into the dimness, the air cooler but heavy with the weight of metal and dust. The old man appears briefly, muttering something about the station before shuffling off, leaving us alone. The silence settles, thick and expectant, broken only by the clank of the chain dropping free. I lean against the workbench, the edge pressing into my hips, my fingers tracing the water bottle's ridges. I take another sip, the chill spreading through my chest, anchoring me as my eyes drift to Scott. He crouches by the engine, his hands probing the machinery, and I study him. The flex of his forearms, the way his jeans hug his thighs, the faint scar curving along his jaw. My business trip was a slog of sterile rooms and forced smiles, a road I traveled alone, but now, here, in this dusty nowhere, something shifts. The boredom evaporates, replaced by a pulse of anticipation, a heat that has nothing to do with the desert sun. I shift my weight, the concrete cool through my shoes, my blouse tugging against my damp skin. Scott straightens, wiping his hands again, the rag a dark streak against his knuckles. He turns to me, his gaze steady, piercing, and for a beat too long, neither of us moves. The air thickens, charged with unspoken possibility, and I feel it, a spark, faint but undeniable, flickering in the space where our eyes lock. The garage feels like a living thing, its shadowed walls pulsing with the heat of the desert afternoon. I lean against the workbench, the edge biting into my hips, the concrete floor cool beneath my shoes. My fingers toy with the water bottle, tracing its ridges, the plastic slick with condensation that mirrors the sweat gathering at the nape of my neck. Scott's crouched by my car, his broad frame half swallowed by the engine's shadow, and I can't stop watching him, his hands moving with a quiet certainty, the faint clatter of tools a rhythm that syncs with the thudding in my chest. The air is thick, heavy with oil and dust, and I breathe it in, letting it ground me as my thoughts spin. I'm not supposed to feel this way. Not here, not now. 3 days in Phoenix wore me down to a husk, a 32-year-old woman running on coffee and deadlines, my life a series of neat boxes, work, home, repeat. This trip was a chore, a stretch of highway I endured alone, but now, in this nowhere place, something's unraveling. Scott's presence tugs at me, a thread I didn't know was loose until he stepped into my line of sight. He's 20, too young, too close to the old man's family, a stranger who shouldn't matter. But my body doesn't care about the rules. My blouse clings to my skin, damp and insistent, and I feel every inch of myself, the heat pooling in my core, the ache in my legs from standing too long. He shifts, reaching for a wrench, and the faded t-shirt stretches across his shoulders, outlining the muscle beneath. I take a sip of water, the cold a sharp contrast to the warmth creeping up my throat, and try to focus on something else. The hum of the desert outside, the faint buzz of a fly trapped in the rafters. But my eyes keep drifting back to him, to the way his dark hair falls across his forehead, the sweat tracing a path down his neck. We've been alone since the old man shuffled back to the station, his parting grunt leaving a silence that feels too big, too intimate. I should be impatient, eager to get back on the road, but instead I'm rooted here, caught in the pull of this moment. So, I say, my voice cutting through the quiet, softer than I mean it to be. How long have you been fixing cars? It's a safe question, a tether to normalcy, but it feels flimsy against the weight of the air. Scott glances up, his green eyes catching mine, and a faint curve tugs at his mouth. Not quite a smile, but enough to stir me. Since I could hold a wrench, he says, his tone low, easy. Grandpa taught me, said I had a knack. He turns back to the engine, but his words linger, a thread of connection I didn't expect. I imagine him as a kid, hands smudged with grease, learning the language of machines, and it softens him in my mind until he moves again and the strength in his frame snaps me back to the present. Sounds like he's proud of you, I reply, shifting my weight, the workbench creaking under me. My fingers tighten around the bottle, the cold seeping into my palm, and I feel a flush creeping up my cheeks. Not just from the heat, but from the way he fills the space, his presence a quiet storm I can't ignore. He is, Scott says, his voice carrying a warmth that matches the pride I heard from the old man. Says I'm the best thing he's got. He chuckles, a low sound that rolls through me, settling somewhere deep, and I find myself smiling, a reflex I can't control. It's a small thing, this exchange, but it shifts the air, makes it lighter, and I realize I'm not just waiting anymore. I'm here, present, caught in the rhythm of his words and the clank of metal. The heat climbs, a relentless wave that presses against my skin, and I feel it in the way my blouse sticks to my ribs, the damp fabric outlining every curve. Scott straightens, wiping his hands on the rag, and then, without warning, he grabs the hem of his t-shirt and peels it off. The motion is casual, practical, but it stops my breath. His torso is bare now, sun-bronzed and taut, a landscape of muscle that gleams with sweat in the dim light. My eyes trace him unbidden, the broad planes of his chest, the V of his hips disappearing into his jeans, the faint line of dark hair trailing downward. He's a man, not a boy, and the realization hits me like a gust of wind, sharp and disorienting. I'm mid-sip when it happens, the water bottle trembling in my grasp. The cold liquid spills, a sudden splash that soaks my t-shirt, the fabric clinging wet and heavy to my breasts. A gasp escapes me, and the bottle slips, tumbling to the concrete with a hollow clatter that echoes in the garage. My hands fumble, useless, as the water pools at my feet, and I feel the flush burning hotter. A mix of embarrassment and something else. Something raw, unnameable. Scott turns, his eyes locking on me, and for a moment, time slows, the air thickening with a charge I can't escape. He steps closer. Too close. His bare chest radiating heat, the scent of sweat and oil wrapping around me like a haze. My t-shirt sticks to my skin, the wet fabric a second skin that reveals more than it hides, and I feel exposed, vulnerable, but not afraid. He bends, picking up the bottle, his movements deliberate, his fingers brushing mine as he hands it back. The touch is fleeting, a spark that sears through me, electric and forbidden, and I feel it everywhere. My pulse racing, my breath catching, the heat pooling low in my belly. He's close now, close enough that I can see the beads of sweat on his collarbone, the faint scar along his jaw, the way his chest rises and falls in time with mine. I should step back, break this moment, but I don't. My body hums, alive in a way it hasn't been in months, years maybe, and I feel the weight of the forbidden pressing in. He's 20, a kid in years but not in presence, and I'm a stranger passing through, a woman with a life he doesn't belong in. The old man's cough echoes faintly from the station, a reminder of the world beyond these walls, but it's distant, irrelevant. Here in this garage there's only us. His bare skin, my wet shirt, the space between us shrinking with every breath. His eyes hold mine, green and piercing, and I see something flicker there. Curiosity maybe, or the same hunger I feel clawing at me. My lips part, a breath escaping, and I feel the water dripping from my shirt, a slow trail that traces my stomach, heightening every nerve. He's still holding the bottle, his hand steady where mine trembles, and I wonder what he sees. My flushed cheeks, my damp curves, the woman I've buried under suits and schedules. The garage shrinks, the walls closing in until it's just the two of us, the heat of his body brushing mine, the promise of something I shouldn't want. I hear my own breath, ragged and quick, mingling with the faint hiss of the desert wind outside. My fingers tighten around the bottle, the cold a lifeline I cling to, but it's not enough to pull me back. He's too close, his bare chest a wall of warmth, and I feel the pull, magnetic, undeniable, drawing me toward the edge. The old man's cough fades, the silence swallowing it, and I realize I've stopped caring about the car, the road, the life waiting for me beyond this place. All I feel is him, the heat of him, the way his presence rewrites the rules I've lived by. His hand hovers near my waist, not touching but close enough that I feel the air shift, the promise of contact dangling like a thread I could pull. A bead of sweat rolls down his neck, tracing the line of his collarbone, and I watch it, mesmerized, my resolve teetering on the brink. I want to move, to close the gap, to feel the heat of his skin against mine, but I don't. Not yet. The tension holds me, a delicious ache that promises more, and I know I'm lost, caught in the spark that's ignited between us, waiting for the flame to catch. The garage is a furnace, the air thick with heat and the tang of oil, but all I feel is Scott, his presence a live wire humming inches from my skin. His hand hovers near my waist, a breath away from contact, and I stand frozen, caught in the pull of his green eyes, the sweat tracing a path down his bare chest. My t-shirt clings to me, wet and heavy from the spilled water, outlining every curve, and I feel it, the exposure, the vulnerability, the thrill of it. My breath comes quick, syncing with his, and the desert outside fades, its endless silence swallowed by the pulse pounding in my ears. I'm 32, a woman with a life of neat edges, but here, in this nowhere place, those edges blur, and I want them to. I move first. A bold, reckless step, my fingers grazing his chest. The touch is electric, his skin warm and firm beneath my fingertips, a jolt that races up my arm and settles deep in my core. He doesn't pull away, doesn't flinch, and I feel the heat of him, the faint salt of his sweat, the steady rise and fall of his breath. My hand flattens against him, palm pressing into the hard plane of his torso, and I traced the lines of muscle, the strength that belies his 20 years. It's forbidden. Age, circumstance, the shadow of the old man's pride in him, but that only sharpens the ache, makes it sweeter. My blouse sticks to my ribs, the damp fabric a second skin, and I feel every nerve flare awake, my body alive in a way it hasn't been in years. He steps closer, closing the gap, and my back meets the workbench, the edge biting into my hips. The contact steadies me, grounds me, as his body presses against mine, not forceful but sure, a wall of warmth that traps me in the best way. My hands slide up, mapping his shoulders, the cords of muscle beneath his sun-bronzed skin, and I feel the tremor in him, a faint quake that mirrors the one running through me. The garage shrinks, its shadowed walls a cocoon, and the air grows heavier, laced with the musk of sweat and the faint hum of machinery. I tilt my head, my auburn hair brushing my neck, and his breath fans across my face, hot and ragged, stirring the strands that cling to my damp skin. Our lips meet. A tentative brush at first, a question I answer by pressing closer, deepening the kiss. His mouth is warm, tasting of salt and summer, and I feel the roughness of his lips, the faint scrape of stubble against my chin. My hands slide to his neck, fingers threading into his dark hair, and I pull him in, hungry for more. The kiss shifts, grows urgent, a tangle of tongues and quiet gasps that fill the silence. The wet t-shirt a thin barrier between us, and I feel him, hard, insistent, pressing against my thigh, a promise that sends a flush burning through me. It's thrilling, terrifying, a line I'm crossing with every breath, but I don't stop. I can't. His hands find me, tentative at first, then bolder, fingers tracing the curve of my waist, the damp fabric bunching under his touch. The sensation is sharp, a current that races across my skin, leaving trails of heat in its wake. I feel the workbench shift behind me, tools clattering faintly, and I press harder against him, my hips rocking into his, a silent plea for more. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of gasoline and our mingled breaths, and I taste it on my tongue, a raw edge that heightens everything. My fingers dig into his shoulders, nails catching on his skin, and he responds, a low sound in his throat, a vibration I feel through my chest, urging me on. I break the kiss, gasping, my lips tingling as I pull back just enough to see him. His eyes are dark, hooded with want, and I feel the weight of his gaze, the way it roams my face, my neck, the wet shirt clinging to my breasts. My hands slide down, tracing his chest again, and I feel the rapid thud of his heart, a mirror to mine. The garage is a haze, dust motes swirling in the dim light, and I step back, tugging him with me, my heels scraping the concrete. We move as one, a tangled dance toward the shadowed corner where a stack of tires looms, a makeshift wall that shields us from the world. My back hits the tires, the rubber cool and yielding, and I pull him closer, my hands framing his face. His breath hitches and I feel it, the shift, the moment we surrender fully. His hands slide under my shirt, fingers brushing my bare skin, and I gasp, the touch igniting a fire that spreads through me. The fabric lifts, peeling away, and I feel the air against my stomach, the heat of his palms as they explore higher, tracing the swell of my breasts. My head tips back, hair catching on the tires, and I feel every sensation, the roughness of his touch, the coolness of the rubber, the heat of his body pressing me into this makeshift throne. I guide him, my hands on his, showing him where I want him, and he follows, his touch growing sure, confident. My skin pebbles under his fingers, a cascade of sensation that leaves me breathless, and I feel the tension coiling tighter, a delicious ache that demands release. His lips find my neck, a trail of heat that sends my pulse racing, and I tilt my head, giving him more, my fingers tightening in his hair. The garage fades, the world beyond it irrelevant. There's only this, the press of his body, the rhythm of our breaths, the unspoken shift that binds us. He stills, a moment of hesitation that I break with a kiss, hard, hungry, a demand he answers. And I feel the heat of him, the reality of what we're doing crashing through me. It's bold, reckless, a step beyond the fleeting touches of before, and I revel in it. The thrill of crossing this line, the raw connection that defies everything I've known. My hands guide him, and we move together, a tangle of need and heat that consumes us. The encounter unfolds in a haze, sweat slick skin, the faint creak of tires shifting under my weight, the hum of the desert wind a distant chorus. I feel every touch, every press of his body. My breath comes in gasps, my hands clutching his shoulders, and I feel the tension peak, a wave that crashes through me, leaving me trembling, sated, alive. He follows, a low sound escaping him, his body shuddering against mine, and we hold there, locked in the aftermath, the air thick with the scent of us. We part slowly, breathless, our gazes locking in the dim light. His eyes are soft now, a mix of awe and something deeper, and I feel it. The bond forged in this moment, a connection that transcends the physical. My t-shirt falls back into place, damp and rumpled, and I smooth it with trembling hands, my body still humming from his touch. The garage reclaims its silence, the tools and tires bearing witness to what we've done, and I feel a shift in me, a transformation, a piece of myself reclaimed in this dusty nowhere. The sun dips low as I drive east, the desert stretching behind me, a golden haze under the fading sky. My hands grip the wheel, steady now, the car purring beneath me. Scott's work, his hands that brought it back to life. My body still carries him, the warmth of his touch, the faint ache of where we collided, and I feel it with every breath, a secret pulsing in my veins. The road ahead is empty, a ribbon of asphalt leading me home, but my thoughts linger in that garage, replaying the moment I crossed the line, the way his eyes held mine in the aftermath. I smile, a quiet curve of my lips, and feel the excitement bubbling up. Raw, unfiltered, a spark I didn't know I needed. Phoenix was a slog, a blur of meetings and monotony, but this was something else. A detour that turned a boring trip into a pulse-pounding revelation. Maybe I'll pass this way again, I think, my fingers drumming the wheel, the desert fading in my rear view. Maybe this nowhere place isn't nowhere after all.